Turn It On, the Level 42 fan podcast, is in no way affiliated with the band. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are solely the speaker's own.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's time to turn it on whenever you can turn it on. You know that you can. We've got Windman with many faces and many names. We've got Mikey with his good graces and his love games. We got Bob C with his bases, though his jokes are lame. But it's time to turn it on whenever you can turn it on. You know that you, but it's time to.
Welcome to Turn It On, the Level 42 fan podcast. We are here with our typical trio from here in the U.S., here to talk the time away with all things Level 42. I'm Bob Considine with the convivial Mr. Mikey Payne. Mikey, how are you today?
I'm good. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Mr. Winston M. Walker, Windman with many faces and many names. How are you today, sir?
Great. Thank you.
Good. Guys, welcome to 2026 as we start year 3 of the Turn It On fan podcast. Before we get started, I do want to thank, for Mikey and Winston, want to thank all the Level 42 fans who lend us their ears or eyes for an hour or so every time we post. The kind words we get all the time are very much appreciated, and we hope you keep listening. Going on 30 plus years, guys, of Level 42 online community. It's only gotten stronger and larger and in different formats. We're always happy to bring this means of communication to talk up one of our favorite bands. So, with all that said, we have a returning guest we're very excited about, guys. As you recall, last year, we had the great Johnny Thirkell on for a fully entertaining conversation. Thank you. Towards the end of it, he had mentioned he had been working on a memoir, and we said, well, please come back when it comes out. And by Jove, it's out now, and he's here. The book is called Blown It. It is available on Amazon and paperback and Kindle for you non-page turners. And you can access it through johnnythirkell.com. And you really should, because it is an uproarious read with some good heart in it too. Johnny Thirkell, thank you so much for rejoining us today. How are you?
I'm great, thank you, Bob, and thank you, guys. It's really kind of you to have me. I mean, I would have thought the listening public would have had enough the last time, so to have me back again, it's a beautiful thing. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, you're welcome, and you really deserve to get as much attention for this book as you can, because it is really well done. When I saw it it was out, the first thing I wondered with you is, were you like, oh my God, is this the moment? What a great moment to see it, the physical form of it, or were you, you're so kind of not pretentious? Were you like, all right, time to change my mouthpieces? What was it for you?
Look, it would be churlish of me to suggest that there wasn't a little bit of a buzz. You know what I mean? I'm the kid who always sat at the back of the class messing about all the time. You know what I mean? Flicking bits of paper at people. So to have a book out there, albeit I'm not expecting queues outside of all of the bookshops nationwide, but for me, it was something of a personal venture. I think we spoke about this. Can't remember we spoke about this on the last pod or whether we spoke about it offline, but
yeah, the
clincher for me was, I've had lots of people over the years saying, you should write, I've bored people with these stories for decades. And I've had so many people say, you should write this stuff down. And I never really bothered, because who's going to want to read this stuff? But actually, a very good friend of mine said to me, you imagine you go up into the loft and you found a book written by your grandfather. Okay, now even though he was a coal miner his whole life, that would just blow me away. That would be the most incredible gift, right? So it's that which sort of spurred me on to do it. But yeah, like I say, it would be it would be churlish to suggest that I didn't get a little bit of a buzz, holding a book, and his chest goes out a little tiny bit. But look, the response has been beyond my wildest imaginings. It really has. I mean, I thought, well, if I can shift 25 copies, I'll be very chuffed.
I think you'll do fine. What kind of response have you gotten?
It's been insane. I mean, people are just so lovely. I've had so many people. Really, I haven't. In anticipation of it not selling very many copies, I didn't go to town in terms of budgets. The advertising budget was zero.
Right.
I just put up some posts on social media and that kind of stuff. And I had so many incredibly kind messages from all kinds of people. People I know, people I don't know, and people have been just so incredibly kind. It's sold more copies than I expected it to sell in its entire, within the next 10 years. It's sold more in the kind of 2 weeks it's been out or something like that. And accidentally, somehow, find myself at number 4 in the Amazon chart for music industry.
Hey,
there you
books.
go.
I mean, I'm an idiot. Barely literate imbecile. No. And somehow I have a book that people are actually parting with money to buy. It's insane. That in itself is insane. Right. So look, I'm super thrilled, and I can't believe it. I might start another one. I'm not sure what I'm going to write about next time, but there we go. Got the bug now.
Yeah, I got the book. I bought the Kindle version. I think I got the book Thursday, and I finished it Saturday night.
Wow.
The very easy read. I had a lot going on here, moving furniture, cleaning everything up. So I'm like, man, am I going to be able to read this before Sunday? So I started in the middle, read to the end, and then start back to the beginning until I caught up. But it's great. It's funny. I would just say for folks who don't read a lot of books, it's literally like you're sitting in a pub and someone's just telling great stories.
Winston, that's really kind, because that's really, really what I wanted it to be. I didn't want it to be pompous or, do you know what I mean, sort of highfalutin. Really, it's just I wanted to try. And like I say, I've been telling these stories for decades, and I really wanted to try and convey that on paper. So it's very, very gratifying to hear you say that. Thank you.
Yeah, one question I had when I was reading it was, it's full of a lot of details. Like, I can't remember stuff from 3 years ago. And I know you kept a diary. When did you start keeping a diary?
I mean, when we say diary, it's literally just like an appointments diary. It's not, dear diary, today I,
right.
Went and got batteries or something. It's just literally, I kept all of my diaries that I had over the years from doing sessions. Now, I'm blessed, stroke cursed, with a sort of accelerated sense of detail. I'm a little bit. If you type in anally retentive into Wikipedia, there's a photograph of me, and so consequently, when I did a session, I would come home and I would write in the diary who it was for. Often when you book for a session, you've no idea what it is, who it's for, whatever it is. But I just was in the habit of writing that in my diary. And then there is a form, a bit of paperwork you have to fill out, especially for record sessions, which makes sure that you get any residual payments and this kind of stuff. And so I would photocopy that form and clip it to my invoice. So I've this kind of wealth of information, and I just set up a big spreadsheet with a sheet for each year, and I went through the diary and kind of listed all the sort of significant things that might be of interest, and that made a skeleton really, and then I just sort of filled in from there. But I'm the sort of person, my wife can send me to the shops for 3 things and I will forget 2 of them.
Oh yeah.
But I can tell you honestly, ask me any record I played on, and I'm pretty sure I can tell you which studio we did it at, who the other players were. I just have a sort of retention for that utterly pointless information. There's just anything that's important goes in one ear and straight out the other. But all these futile facts somehow get lodged in between.
Cool.
Again, another lengthy and verbose answer to a question that could have been answered in a quarter.
No, please talk all you want. Go ahead, Mikey.
In doing your book, John, I guess it gave you a chance to sort of relive some things. Was there a time or event that you kind of had forgotten about that you kind of rediscovered again?
100%. I mean, there were lots of them. When you, like I say, I've been telling these stories for so long, and I find some of them I've been telling in the wrong context or the wrong place or with the wrong people. This sort of all gets jumbled up inside your brain a little bit. But I'll give you an example. I went on the QE2 twice. I'd completely forgotten that.
Yeah.
There's a whole chunk there. That was my sort of mad youth. We got up to all kinds of ridiculous stuff. But I'd completely forgotten that I came off there and I went back on there again. It's only looking through my diary that I realized this. So I guess there are lots of things. There are lots of things which, like I said, I've been telling them in the wrong order or out of context or whatever. So I was able to hopefully straighten that stuff up. I just hope I've remembered. There are lots of people who appear in the book, right? And I'm waiting for one of them to ring me up and say, "No, that's not what happened."
Well, it's your truth.
Yeah, indeed it is. I tell these things in the way in which I recall them, and there is something of a caveat in the introduction.
Yeah.
Pointing out that I am an old senile half-wit, and it's very possible that some of these stories are all a bit jumbled up in my.
Yeah.
Matron will be along in a minute.
Well, then you'll get book 2, the rebuttals.
Yes.
Well, it's funny you brought up the QE2, Johnny, because I kind of pulled out for this interview certain sections that I wanted to ask you about, and one of them was that part. Not ask you about it, but that part of the book brings about a theme that does run through this book, and I don't even know if you were going for a theme, but it's the kind of the incredulous nature that this is your life as you go through it. Because you actually wrote, when you're on the QE2, how did this happen? It seems so far from Horden Colliery, which is the mine you worked at. I wasn't to know that this was the beginning of a life I didn't even know existed, let alone dream of. Thankfully, I still get these moments regularly, and when I do, I make sure to cherish them. And this is one of my favorite lines in the book. They remind me that somehow I was accidentally issued with someone else's life.
I mean, it does feel like that. It really does. I think, I mean, I still, to this day, can't get over what a charmed life. I mean, I'm still waiting for things to crash around my ears, because, that I've not really faced any adversity or anything like that. I just sort of breezed through life, getting lucky. It's insane. But I am very, very conscious. I'm still very good friends with all the guys I grew up with. The guys who played in the colliery band with me. We're all still good friends, and I see them from time to time. I don't get up there too much these days.
Yeah.
But on social media, it's easy to keep in contact with people, and their lives are. And again, I want to be careful about this. Their lives are so different to mine. I'm not saying mine they're better or worse. I'm not comparing them. But if none of these ridiculous things had happened to me, then I'd be where those guys are, and that's fine. But I'm conscious just how fortunate I've been, and I'm still not really sure how it's happened. But there you go.
I think mission is accomplished here because your life has been so unusual. But I don't read this book and all these experiences saying, "Oh, he's name dropping this." It's quite the opposite, actually. Like, you're just incredulous that you've had this experience with David Bowie or Paul McCartney rings me up. I mean, and it was so well shared. You know what I mean? There's no pomposity in this at all.
Oh, I mean, that's again really gratifying to hear, because that really was, and in actual fact, this book has sort of been in in the works for several years, really. But periodically, I'd sit down to write it, and then pretty quickly I'd have a huge attack of imposter syndrome. Who cares about this stuff, right? So, to hear, I really, really was concerned that it would come across like, look at me sort of thing, right? Whereas I don't, I'm just I'm good at my job. That's about it, really. That's how I see it. But millions of people are good at their job, aren't they? Right?
Right.
There you go. They don't get the benefits that I've got.
Writing the job that you have, you can't really tell these stories without saying, it wouldn't be the same if you said, I got hired for some guy who sings. He
Mm.
made me a cup of coffee, for example. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But
Yes.
the whole how you got the gig on the QE2, I love, because it's just random. And the band leader, was it Ronnie? How do you pronounce the last name?
Ronnie Carroll.
Carroll.
God bless him. God rest
That
his soul.
those stories were like, oh my God, like this guy really climbed up a rope ladder to get back on a boat he missed twice.
It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my entire life, because Ronnie was almost as wide as he was tall. And to see this sort of weeble swinging from the side of an ocean-going liner, it's just, but still clinging onto a carrier bag full of cheese and wine. It's an enduring memory, I can tell you. Yeah, I mean, the improbability of these things is just, I mean, you literally couldn't make it up, really. If I think so anyway. Some of these things, I think, how the hell did that happen?
I'll get to some level questions here in just a little bit, but a few things that stuck out with me is I've never heard anyone evacuate or read anyone evacuate a hotel room as quickly as you did. That's a great story. I don't want to give it away to the listeners.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I'm just got a note from BBC News. You're not the Yorkshire Killer either.
No, I'm not the Yorkshire Ripper. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, it's not music related, but it's what? I mean, it's a ridiculous story, isn't it? I mean, arrested 3 times as a serial killer. It sharpens the mind. I can tell you that.
And I think Win and Bob said it too. You're not name dropping. Obviously, you're having to list these names because it's part of your life's journey.
Yeah.
But I like how you kind of weaved it to everyone, probably in public probably thinks it's all roses and, you're all hanging out and partying and everybody likes everybody and stuff. And you give a real, you tell it like it is. You kind of lift the veil a little bit
Mm,
about how the dynamics work between different musicians and things.
yeah.
Um, but the one thing I did want to ask um, is there a musician or band that you haven't worked with yet that you would like to?
Yeah, I mean that's the easiest question in the world. There are two, and I'm not. One is Tom Waits,
Hmm.
huge Tom Waits fan. I would love to work with Tom Waits. It would be absolutely. And the other one is Prince, of course.
Yeah.
That's not going to. Frank Zappa also. So either one of those. Obviously, I've only got one left. So if you're listening, I'm sure he's tuning in, right? Um, I, I'd love to play. I'm a huge Tom Waits fan, so I'd love to
Really?
play with Tom Waits. Or yeah, Prince or Frank Zappa. Missed my chance there, I'm afraid.
One time, if I may name drop here, I went to a late night with David Letterman taping, and I was there for rehearsals, and Tom Waits was the musical guest.
Okay,
So I can't remember what song he did, but all I remember is
was it Nickel on the Dime?
no, it wasn't
Okay,
that.
okay.
But I got to watch him rehearse it 6 straight times. So I'm ashamed I don't remember the song now, but
Yeah, it does. I mean, I ask only because I listened to that this very morning.
oh really? Yeah, yeah,
It's
that
one of
would have
those
been
things.
crazy.
YouTube knows everything about you, doesn't it? And it
Yeah, it
knows I'm a
does.
big Tom Waits fan. So every time I open it up, it chucks some Tom Waits at me. But yeah,
Yeah. One of the chapters, and I, I just love this chapter, and it's simply called "Fun and Games." And there are some shorter segments in this chapter. And the one is the Ping with Bing, which is, all of 3 paragraphs, but hysterical. We're doing these teases so people buy this book because it is really funny. And then the one I would ask you to maybe kind of recall a little bit was the shatter teeth trick. Do
Yeah.
you remember?
Oh
So,
no! How could I forget? Yeah, this is when I was in the BBC Radio Big Band. This was like a full-time job at the BBC, and like a really hard job. We would do 9 sessions a week, and we'd record 9 tunes in a session. Literally one run through. On goes the red light, bang! You record it, and that's it. On straight on a quarter-inch tape, no drop-ins. So it's
right.
quite, there's a lot of a lot of pressure there.
Yeah.
Okay, and so. Various people deal with pressure in a different way, and the lead trumpet player was a guy called Nigel Carter. Again, God rest his soul. Nigel was one of the funniest guys I've ever met, and all of those tricks like Ping It Bing
Yeah.
and Surprise Symphony and all this kind of mad, we were almost giving the principal violinist a heart attack. All those things. They were all at Nigel's instigation. He was like a 55-year-old man trapped in a 16-year-old's body. Mental. No, other way around. Sorry, 16-year-old trapped in a 55-year-old man's body. Sorry. And one of the tricks we did, we'd take a tea break, and the way up to the canteen at the BBC was a long, long corridor with those kind of double swinging doors. Okay, and whenever there was an unsuspecting string player up ahead, Nigel would he'd be walking behind them. He'd make the door swing and then kick it with his foot to make a big bang, and he'd then put his hand over his mouth and start spitting out teeth. And this horrified violinist would be, "Oh my God, I've knocked all the lead trumpet players' teeth out." It was
Right.
actually just 3 or 4 polo mints that he'd
Yeah.
kind of crushed up, and he's spitting out bits of polo mint. But yeah, there were quite a few. They had quite a few close heart attacks for that. Yeah.
But then he turned the table on him, the violinist, did he not?
The violin. Yes, yes. Well, that was it was one of the more elaborate tricks that we did. On a Thursday, we would be the Radio Big Band would be amalgamated with the BBC Strings to form the BBC Radio Orchestra, and there were there's all kinds of shenanigans going on there. And Nigel thought it would be great. We bought an old violin, so the guy who shall remain nameless, the principal violinist, he remained nameless largely because I can't remember his name.
No, it was Derek. You gave him the name Derek, I think.
Well done. So we had the tea break. Derek goes out, comes back in. Derek was in the habit of putting his violin inside the grand piano, and so we thought it would be great. We bought a cheap violin and we put this inside the grand piano, but with the end kind of sticking out. When Derek came back from his tea, I gave Nigel the nod, and Nigel accidentally drops the piano lid and smashed the violin into matchsticks. And the look on his face was unbelievable. And he sort of clutched his chest and started staggering around like this. And I looked at Nigel, and Nigel looked at me. Oh my God, we've killed Derek. He's gonna this look of shock and horror. And but he actually turned the tables. Somebody tipped him off, I think, that this wasn't his violin. I mean, that we wouldn't be stupid enough. It was like a Marty, some kind of insanely expensive violin. But
Right.
we had our trousers pulled down by a violinist.
I know.
Shame.
I love that story. I do love that story.
John, I don't want to give away. We want people to read the book, obviously.
Thank you, Mikey.
But can you explain a little bit about your first? Well, first off, when's the first time you became aware of Level 42? Was it on the radio or on television?
Well, I think yes. I mean, in the book prior, I'd been working at. I tell the whole story. It's where I met my first wife at a place called the Hammersmith Palais. It's kind of a like a sort of nightclub kind of a gig. And the word was out about this guy. Have you heard this guy play the bass? It's insane. It's pop music, but would like You know, there's a dreadful sort of um, snobbery amongst musicians. You know, that pop music, it's not really that worthy, and again, you come across a lot of that. Um, and then all of a sudden, here's this guy that with just the most phenomenal chops, who can play incredible stuff and sing at the same time, right? And so, I mean, it's that really. That was my first sort of interface with Level 42, and of course, the music is great anyway. I mean, I think one of the tricks with Level 42 is this ability to combine, I think, high level musicality, okay, with popular sounds, you know, things that, or you know, you don't need to be a muso to appreciate the sort of the quality of what's going on there. Swing Out Sister is another band that I've been involved with where I feel the same sort of thing, right? It's really high quality music dressed up as pop music, right? And so, yeah, I followed this band. You know, I'd followed them, you know, for several years. When Gary Barnacle, you know, said Mark had asked us if we'd go down to the island and start recording, which was ended up on the Guaranteed album. So yeah, it was for me. It was a big thrill. You know, very very fine band, and very happy, and still am very proud to be associated with Level 42 for sure.
Yeah, is there a song during the guaranteed recording sessions or a moment in those sessions that stands out with you as, you know, one of your favorite songs off that album?
Well, I think My Father's Shoes is a favorite of mine, largely because of Al Holdsworth's guitar solo. I mean,
Mm.
just mental. So again, uh, it's that mix of chops, right, and ability and genius, brilliance,
Yeah.
and yet it's you know, it's palatable to the you know, to the sort of general public ear, you know. And I think that
Yeah.
when I was really blissfully unaware. I'm a bit of a dolt, really,
Mm.
Mikey, and you know, you know, I was blissfully unaware of lots of things. Well, I grew up when all my friends were listening to sort of Pink Floyd and those. I was listening to Black Dyke Mills brass band, so my historical musical knowledge is pretty limited. So I was blissfully unaware of Alan Holdsworth at this point, until I heard that, and then I became blissfully aware of him. So I think that was a standout moment from that. It had nothing to do with our recording.
Mm.
You know, it was more that was just wow.
Yeah, I think for me, the way you and Gary kind of added your horns to the live version of Guaranteed at the end is one of my favorites. But there was a B-side off that album called As Years Go By, and I
Okay.
love the way that you guys closed that song. It's not a song that a lot of fans know.
No.
But oddly enough, I think my favorite song is, and it's one that doesn't have brass in it, is 7 Years because of
Okay.
Holdsworth.
Yeah.
His guitar in that song is just
Yeah.
incredible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And John, I think you might be getting confused with the title. I think you said My Father's Shoes, and that's more of an acoustic type thing. And I think you might be talking about either A Kinder Eye.
A kinder eye.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's a
That's the
kind.
one.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Mm.
see, I said I was adult.
No,
You know,
that's all right.
I've got no idea what I'm talking about.
I mean, you've only done 5,000 some songs. I mean, come on, John.
Think of all those careers I've ruined, right?
I I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when Holdsworth discovered that empty keg of ale.
I was
Wow.
just going to ask about that.
Yeah,
Like
he
that.
was. I mean, he was beyond heartbroken, and we thought this was the most hilarious thing. We had waited like 10 days, 2 weeks for this ale to be a drinking point, and yeah, Thunder came along and drank all of it, and the fumes, everything, just like a like a crumbled up plastic carton in the bottom of the cupboard. Very funny.
Yeah, I also as far as the name henpecked horns goes, I saw that pop up on records. I mean, I know what henpecked means, but I didn't know the origin of that story. So
Mm.
people probably get a kick out of reading why that name came about.
Yeah,
And
well, it's yeah. That's Mark's sense of humor, right? It's
And the book does contain, and we're not going to get into it because we want people to buy it, but there is the very rare level 42 fight in this book. So you should go download it and read it or order it because it's
Yeah, I hope I've dealt with that in a delicate way. It was
yeah,
meant to, the purpose of it was not to sort of expose
right.
any sort of division or anything. It was really, it was meant to illustrate, you know, half a dozen people, 6 or 7 people on a bus together for 5 months.
Yep.
It's tricky,
It is, and
so the purpose of the story, like I said, was not to throw anyone under the bus, but more to just illustrate that even guys who are good friends and we worked together on stage musically, none of them, nothing musical was affected by that sort of by any, and these things ebb and flow. Sometimes, I'm a bit. I mean, Gary Husband was fed up with me at one stage for something, and I was fed up with Gary.
yeah,
These things sort of happen, right? They don't, and I guess it's you've got to maintain. You've got to remember that people. That's not what people pay their money for, right? They pay
right,
their money for, and of course, it, like flu, when you get on stage, it gets forgotten. You
right.
can feel as rough as anything. Once
Yeah.
you get on stage there and you start to feel that energy and you start to play, then all of the rest of the world, all of your ills and woes, they all disappear and you crack on.
It really is amazing that I mean, you know, it's no secret that Mark and Phil kind of had their battles over the year, but when you watch them at the time when they supposedly were not talking, when they're on stage together, you look at videos, it's like, first of all, you can't tell there's anything wrong with them, and two, they're playing great together. So it's just weird.
Yeah, it is funny, and I think it's a funny thing. Yeah, I don't think that under their breath they were sort of swearing at each other. It's a genuine thing.
Yeah,
You can be at loggerheads. Once you get on stage, everything else ceases to be important, and the
yep,
most important thing is conveying that music in the best way you possibly can. And so everything. That's one of the beauties of being a musician, right? Once you get underway, and I don't want to sound too ethereal, but I'm an ex-coal miner, for God's sake. You know what I mean? I'm in no position to start sort of philosophizing, but
right.
but it's an extraordinary thing. It's one of the I say often, as you guys know, I run kind of these residential music camps, and one of the things I try and instill into the people who come there is, we're magicians. We magic things out of thin air. We make stuff, right, that really affects people and really moves people and does all kinds of things out of thin air. I mean,
Yeah,
that what a privilege that is. It's
yeah,
unbelievable. I mean, I'm talking nonsense now. Sorry, guys.
Oh, but I like in the book you talk about well, you mentioned the Town and Country gig with 42
Mhm.
that got filmed, and that's like absolutely one of my favorite live performances of the band. I mean, it would be that tour, but we have that, memorialized on Laserdisc and VHS and DVD. And that band was so damn tight, and the brass really uplifted the band. Everybody was working, and I love it. Like, I think you even mentioned like playing the Chinese way at 3,000 miles an hour or
yeah,
something. Super
Yeah.
intricate, super fast. So, you
Yeah,
know,
I think, and again, that's sort of symptomatic. It's a common thing. I think if you've been on the road, I think by that stage we'd been on the road like 4 months or something, so 4, maybe even 5 months. I'm not sure, but you need to keep your energy going, right? You're tired. You've been sleeping on a bus for months, and that's gradually the tempos do tend to creep up,
yeah.
and until you get to the point where it feels like you've got a bus to catch.
Win, I'm glad you brought up that show because John, before we ever met you on here, um, and if you were to say your name, and the first recollection I would come to my head was just a moment in time which you would never even remember, but it's during the Guaranteed show on the Town and Country where you and Gary just does a sax solo in "Living It Up." Before it goes into the guitar solo, there's just a 2 note stab, and it goes "dun," and then Jacko just goes off. That 2 note stab when Winston talks about the band lifting it up, the horns lifting up the band. That's it. It was just 2 notes, and
Wow.
it just comes to my head like every time I think of it, it's "dun," and it. It's
Okay,
awesome.
good. I mean, it was such a joy to play with that band. Really, one of the most difficult gigs I've ever had to do in terms of
Stamina.
the quantity of stuff we had to play and the quality to the standard to which you were held. Right, Mark. Again, one of Mark's great skills is he holds himself to a very high standard, and he holds everybody else to a very high standard too, and that's a great thing. I think it makes you bring your A game to every single show, and everybody in that band. I mean, playing with Gary Barnacle was just. I mean, it's quite sad. I've kind of lost touch with him now,
Yeah.
and I'm not really sure how, but that's life, I guess, right? But
Yeah.
playing with him, he's like a tour. He's like a force of nature, Gary. It's just um, such a huge sound and just intent. Play with really great intent, and everybody, all the other guys in the band, everybody was doing a great job at everything. It was really one of the happiest periods of my playing career. Touring with that band really was.
That's great to hear because sometimes when we talk to like Mike Lindup, he agrees, but he also says it was a difficult time for them because they were kind of coming off of a record label change. And they, I guess Polydor wasn't necessarily thrilled with that record, and they switched
Mm.
to RCA, and you know, it was a
Yeah.
it was a tougher time for them.
Yeah, of course,
Uh,
I'm inured to all of that, right?
yep.
Yeah, I'm just the Herbert who turns up to work every. That's I don't mean it like that, but you know what I mean. That the sort of politics behind the scene, that it really has nothing to do with. I'm the hired gun, as it were. So,
Yeah.
so I was free to just enjoy playing with a bunch of amazing musicians playing great music, right? Amazing.
Yeah. And I'll make one more tie to that period if I could, Johnny. Like when we read Jocko's book and I read your book, one of the themes that came to me is you both had times where uh, you didn't know where the next paycheck was coming, or there was a shortage of money, and then you just get a call and
Yeah.
oh, here's this amazing thing. Did you ever think about that? Like, my gosh, if this never came, what could have happened?
Yeah, look, I think I make reference to this early on in the book. For the first 10 years of my career, we'd get to January and I'm staring at a blank diary, nothing in there. And I think, well, I better start selling insurance or something like that. And that happened every year with alarming regularity. And it's only after 10, 15 years you think, well, actually, you know what? That's happened every year thus far, and I'm still here, right? And I'm still paying the bills, and so you tend to relax about it a little bit, but it can be quite scary, right?
Yeah,
Because many musicians, I've always been um, pretty organized, okay, and I've been the kind of person who will put money away when I'm earning, so this tied me through the famines, as it were. But a lot of musicians aren't like that, right? And they'll spend what they get, and it's tough. But I guess it's tough. Whatever, I mean, if you're a carpenter or a plumber, you know what
yeah,
I mean. It's the same
yeah.
thing, really. You've got to learn to sort of stretch your earnings across the year, as it were.
Hmm. Yeah, even like I'm Wayne, what's it called when somebody works outside and they do your lawn?
A gardener,
Whatever.
Yeah.
Landscape.
Landscaper. Thank you,
landscapes.
Mike.
Yeah, okay.
I
So the
had that
landscapers
in
right
high
now,
school.
the landscapers right now are kind of like, boy, I make sure I save in
Yeah,
January for
right, of course,
January.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, they know for sure that that's going to happen, right? At least as a musician, you can live in the vain hope that accidentally somebody's doing something in January. Once Christmas is done, and record companies aren't making records in January, nobody's got any money, so they aren't going out to gigs, or nobody's planning this kind of stuff, and so yeah. But I'm still here, thankfully, still getting away with it.
Yeah, and the book it's well rounded for anyone that likes music because while this is a Level 42 podcast, there's a lot of crossover. I'm a huge fan of the brand new heavies. I think, yeah, I had come to London one time to see 42, and we had a day off. Well, we as tourists, and brand new heavies were playing in London. So we all decided let's go see them. They're a great band live. I'm a huge fan to Swing Out. So, and I was telling Bob before you came on, I was telling her she's gonna have to buy this book because she's a huge 40 fan and even bigger Jamiroquai fan. And there's lots of stories about those bands that are especially Jamiroquai stuff's hilarious, you know.
Yeah, no, yeah, we get into some scrapes with those guys. But, I think that was also I see. I'm not sure whether either of them would thank me for this, but I see similarities between Jay and Mark. You know, they are both people who are incredibly driven, right? Very self. They push themselves very, very hard, and they expect everybody around them to hold themselves to the same kind of standard. They both have this innate thing where it feels to me like the idea of not being able to do something just doesn't enter their mind. Mark was like that. Jay is exactly like that. You know, I mean, the idea of not being right, the idea of not being able to do something,
Yeah.
just never enters their mind. And I
Yeah.
mean, that's a gift, right? Don't you think?
Oh yeah.
Just us mere mortals, right? We think, well, there's no way I could do that. And that holds us back with a lot of things. But I think Mark and Jay are very similar in that respect. I did some work with the Spice Girls too, and they were the same, but for different reasons.
And I'm glad you brought that up because there's honesty in this book, because when you get to the Spice Girls part of the story, you're honest about, well, we wrote songs for them and they weren't the best songs.
They were
Whereas
dreadful.
if it's my book, I'm telling that like, oh, you should have heard the stuff I wrote for them that never got released, and then I would never let it get released.
Yeah. Sadly, I didn't have that choice. Right? When they got rid of their management, out went the baby with the bathwater, as it were. But I think they were shocking songs, but they really were awful. But it's what you get when you get. At the time, I was in my mid-30s, and these are songs for 15-year-old girls, right?
Right.
It stands to reason. It was a very interesting period, and a very interesting thing to be involved in. But there's a couple of Spice Girls sort of super fans who every 3 or 4 months I get a message begging me to sell them the masters for those.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know whether the guy's got any money or not. I mean, I wouldn't sell it anyway, but I imagine that they'd be quite valuable. Really, I think a lot of Spice Girls. There's a documentary called Raw Spice, in which I make a brief appearance as the guy who'd written the songs. It's part of it is about the showcase where they got their record deal, and they were performing the songs that I'd written with my then he's still my business partner, Owen Kalis, and we were interviewed in that documentary. But that's the only recorded, instance, or publicly available instance of those songs which we wrote. Thank the Lord. This guy, there's two of them, and they write to me with alarming regularity, saying, begging me to sell them the masters. But I wouldn't. I mean, I don't think I'd do this. It's more trouble than it's worth, really. I think.
I was glad to see. I'm sorry, Mike. Just one more thing about, to Wynn's point about honesty. You don't spend time trashing people, but there are times when people aren't as nice as they could have been, and you call them out for it. And I love that, because to me, just rudeness has no place. So I'm glad. We're not going to get into who they were or whatever, but I'm just glad you did. So.
Yeah, well, yeah. I thought I did it in as sensitive a way as I possibly could.
Yes.
I'm not in the business of being. Everybody has their own cross to bear, don't they? Right? I'm not.
Yeah, but I mean, things like, all right, so with Whitney Houston, I think she had some kind of special. You couldn't even go near her or something like that. Whatever it said in the book.
Yeah, it was a little bit.
Yeah.
And you know what, Bob? Who's to say that that's not her? That's her management. Do you know what I mean? Often tour managers can be really massively overprotective. So who's to say it might not have been her? It may have been her tour manager or something like that. But I think it was the fact that it made Phil Collins put his trousers back on and leave his dressing room. I think made the story worthwhile inclusion being included.
But even Phil Collins in his book, his memoir, he kind of called out Paul McCartney because he's like, you feel like you have to kind of kowtow to him. That was his perception when he
Okay.
talks. When you talk to Paul, you have to give deference that you're talking to the Paul McCartney. And
Which
he
is
actually
fair
wrote
enough.
that. He actually wrote that in his book. So
Did he? Did
yeah,
he? I mean, in my experience, both absolutely diamond, really lovely, kind, ordinary, generous people. Both Phil Collins and Sir Paul McCartney.
good.
Yeah, but I guess often these things are it's on the day, isn't it? Right?
Yeah,
It's on the day. He may have had. He may have been chewed out by his wife for leaving the toilet seat up them or something. You know what I mean? You don't. Who knows? Who knows what goes on in people's lives, right? I
very
don't know.
important.
Yeah, for
Well,
sure.
this sort of leads into my question, actually. I mean, we spoke to Julian Mendelssohn last year,
Yep.
and kind of spoke about his fingerprints being all over 80s and 90s music. The same goes for you, though, John. Uh, you know, I'm sure every 80s, 90s station, we're going to hear at least one of your songs at least once an hour. And you've worked, in the book, you've worked with so many people from this period,
Mm.
like Paul McCartney and George Michael, which I'm really curious about working with George Michael. I was a
Mm.
huge fan of his.
Okay.
Um, was there a moment that you were just absolutely starstruck and almost paralyzed that you were like, I can't believe I'm really here at this moment?
There was, and I think you may be surprised at who it was.
Oh, yeah?
Um, yeah, I think you might, but maybe you won't be. I don't know. I don't know. But I was very, very fortunate to do a live show with Barry White. And it's
Wow.
Barry White. Barry White is the one. I mean, all of these other people, Grace Jones and Tina Turner and Paul McCartney. It's impressive. I'm super impressed. But my I had one sister, a sister who was 10 years older than me, and I grew up with her playing Barry White records on her Dansette Major. She would play them, constantly, and I was very fortunate enough. It was a TV show in Belgium called the Diamond Awards, so Barry White was the sort of headline act, and as is often, I think it's one of those kind of variety show, wheel 'em
Yeah.
on, wheel 'em off shows, right? And there's all kinds of other people in there, and he was the main artist, and he wasn't at the rehearsal. His MD came along and took the rehearsal. So the first time I met him was as we were about to go on stage, and I'd grown up with, as I say, my sister, God rest her soul, playing all of these Barry White records, and I thought, I would kick myself if my sister would be horrified if I didn't go and say hello. So I went up to him and I said, "I'm, sorry to disturb you. I know we're about to go on and everything. I just really wanted, really want to take the opportunity to say hello, and I'm the trumpet player in the band. And I just wanted to thank you for I've had years and years, and the joy you gave me and my sister is incredible. I just wanted to say thank you." And he stuck out his massive, great big hand, and he said, "Hey," that was it. That was it. Amazing, amazing.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
and
Wow.
Mikey, I played like an absolute idiot. Honestly, because that's the only time I think in my entire career I thought I'm playing with Barry White. It's mental. I've been listening. My sister would play these records when I was 9 years old,
Right.
and here I'm standing
Wow.
here, I'm playing with the guy. It's insane,
Wow.
insane. You can't
Wow.
believe it.
I want to congratulate you, John, on the book. I hope it goes to number one. It should. And just anyone who's a fan of the 80s and 90s and just music in general has got to read your book.
Well,
Absolutely read your book.
thank you, Mikey. That's very, very kind. It is very gratifying that people are buying it and people are reading it, because as I said earlier, it was with great hesitation it's been written for a long time, and it's with great hesitation that I put it out there because it felt a little bit pompous, and a little bit, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever. So the fact and I'm getting the feedback I'm getting is just, I mean, it's people are just so kind. Honestly, I mean, That's really incredible. Really, I mean, I expect it, and I'm touching wood when I said I was expecting lawsuits. But actually, what I got, what I've had so far has been incredible feedback, and it's thanks to also I want to thank you guys for engaging with it. This is my second time, as you said, to be back on here so shortly afterwards. So I really appreciate the help you guys are giving, especially Bob. Bob removed about 14,500 unnecessary capital letters and exclamation marks before it was released. So yeah, guys, thank you so much. It's been, it's really great to chat to you guys.
Yeah, no, we enjoy this, and I have really enjoyed the book. I was able to, as John said, I was able to kind of get a read of it over the summer, and what I loved about it was your voice in it, not just the stories, but the way you told it. You could have picked parts where somebody else could have looked at it and said, "Oh, this could be tightened up here a little or something." But with at risk of losing your voice in it, I just would just as soon keep it the way it is, because I'm looking at one of the jokes here. You're in the middle of a story about ABBA, and in parentheses he writes, terrible musician joke. If Benny and Bjorn had been called Steve and Dave, we'd all be dancing to Waterloo by Asda.
So Asda is a kind of low budget supermarket.
Right. But these are the important non sequiturs you'll see throughout the entire book. So
one of my things I was reading, I'm sitting on the sofa, got the recliner up, I'm kicked back, and I think the chapter is "The Bells Are Ringing."
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was going to ask about that.
Okay, so I'm not going to but then, I'm reading that and I'm feeling sad. And then you write, although you do jump to the front of the queue for Phantom of the Opera, and I damn near spit my iced tea out. And I'm like, this son of a bitch, I'm feeling sad and he's making me laugh. That was great.
I had no idea before I read that you had a Bell's palsy thing,
Yeah, and look, it's the one thing that a trumpet player or any brass player doesn't want to get is Bell's palsy. It's the one thing. Overnight, you're out of business. So it was quite a scary time, but
yeah,
thankfully we got over it and we're able to laugh about it in hindsight.
I will say, Winston was chatting with us a few days ago, and Winston was reading your book at a restaurant and laughing out loud, and people were staring at him. I think that was brilliant.
Guys, I can't tell you how lovely this is. I could do this all night. I can't, because I tried really hard. I really wanted it to be. I really wanted it to be like just sitting around a table, right, with a drink, like I've done a squintillion times in the past, right? Just sort of telling these stories as they crop up. So to hear this kind of feedback is super gratifying. I really appreciate it.
Are you going to do an audiobook version of your book?
I hadn't planned on it, but so many people have said to me, are you going to do an audio book, that I sort of think, well, if I can find the time, this year is I'm already an incredibly busy year for me this year.
Good.
But if I can find the time, then I think what I might do, Mikey, is I might start the process and see how long it's taking. You know what I mean? If I can remember, I'm having to read. I think because I listened to quite a lot. I've just finished listening to Thomas Dolby's audio book and Trevor Horn's before that. I read a lot of these kinds of things, and it's quite difficult to make to make it come off the page. It's a bit like putting something into Google Translate, right? And then taking it and getting it to translate into French, and then putting the French back in there and putting it out as English. You know what I mean? It's quite difficult to make it come off the page, and I'm not really sure what the rules are. I'd rather just tell the stories, rather than read them from the book. But I'm not sure whether you're allowed to do that. Who knows? I don't know. But sorry, as usual, Mikey, an incredibly long and tedious answer to a question which could have been answered in 3 words. Perhaps. I maybe, maybe.
Cool.
I'd like to.
I
Cool.
would point out to people, and I found this out by accident. I got the Kindle version because I knew I wasn't going to get a book delivered in time that I could read it before the day. But with the Kindle version on my iPad, you can make it read the book. And it's, doesn't sound really like a human, but if you're doesn't really like sit down, if you're doing housework, there you go.
If you get it,
listen to
you're
it.
doing something useful, then
Right. I mean, at least, because I know a lot of people now, I used to read and buy a lot of books. I don't really do that anymore. I read them pretty much all digitally.
Okay.
And I do like an audio book, but I found that out by mistake because I was like touching the screen. I'm like, oh, there's a way it just starts reading the book for you.
Wow.
So
Well, here's a little bit of sort of live real world feedback I'd like from you guys. What did you think? Because I made the decision not to put photographs in the book because they come out. I mean, I'm a Kindle user as well, Winston, and I think photographs on the Kindle, it's really not a particularly gratifying experience, right? So I made the decision to put a little QR code in the front there, and which means that you just scan that with your phone and it will take you to a web page where all of the photographs pertinent to the book are in there. And also it means I added a couple today. There's a couple of new pictures that crop up, and so I can stick and now put some video. So I felt personally that was a bit slightly more richer experience than looking at sort of grainy photographs printed in a book. What do you feel about that? Is that a decent idea, or not really
that's good.
bothered?
It's a good idea because you can get more pictures and videos well, first of all, you can't get a video, as you mentioned, in a book.
Right.
But you
Lord
get
knows
more
we've tried.
pictures.
Yeah.
Right. I've tried and it doesn't work out right. And so, you can keep adding pictures as you said you'll do, like you did today. So I actually used the code, and I looked yesterday. I looked at a bunch of the pictures, and so I've got a picture of Ronnie in my brain from your description, and I'm like, oh, there's the guy. That's and it was a pretty good description. But yeah, because you can just keep uploading, and next year you're like, oh crap, I found these pictures of Bon Jovi I forgot about. Boom.
Yeah. And it is surprising how these things sort of crop up. People will send me a link to a video on YouTube with me with an embarrassing head. I might be happy for any hairdo these days, but these things crop up, and I can just keep adding them to that page there, and people can go back and look at this stuff.
I thought it was a great idea. They always say, a picture's worth 1,000 words, but they're not your words. So and you just mentioned too, you're able to update it. If you find a trove of things tomorrow, you can just throw it up there. So I thought it was a great idea.
Oh, good. Oh, well, that's good. There we are. There's some live feedback. I'm glad it went well.
When I read the Bon Jovi stuff, I was laughing at the vision of you in this outfit because I lived through that silly time in New Jersey, 1987. It didn't get bigger than 87, 88. Did not get bigger than Bon Jovi. And I knew what they dressed like. And I'm like, how did John look in one of these outfits?
Absolutely. In fact, there is a case in point, right? It's one thing to sort of describe the preposterous nature of me wearing John Bon Jovi's clothes, along with a pair of green boat shoes. That's one thing, but actually to see the picture, it's a magnificent photograph, isn't it? It's one that I take great pleasure in showing people.
Yeah.
I think our listeners want to know what Bob was wearing and see pictures from that period.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, well, there's space on the website, Bob. We can always.
There you go.
It's funny, and this is really off topic, but my mother was eating at a restaurant in here at the Jersey Shore, and who showed up but Richie Sambora. This was just last year.
Oh man! And
she didn't know who he was, but my sister who was with her did, and so they took a picture of Richie eating his soup with my mom sitting in the foreground. So we could definitely loop that in here, Win, on the YouTube.
What a lovely guy! All really lovely guys. They were
Yeah.
all really super kind. Richie and Tico the drummer. What a really fun guy he is. Yeah.
Yeah, and Richie's mom just passed away last week,
Oh
unfortunately.
no.
Yeah,
Oh, that's sad.
she was,
That's sad.
I have one last question, Johnny. You mentioned at the start of our conversation today about the idea of, if you saw your old grandfather's book and how cool that would be.
Mm.
Who do you hope will see this book when we're all dead and gone? I mean, laying in a bookshelf. Are you hoping like your grandchildren get this?
The bargain bin.
Yeah, no, but I mean, seriously, like, it's just something like, a kind of your first of all, I would want to know what your family thought of it, but they've heard all those stories. But even the grandchildren, I mean, isn't that kind of cool?
Yeah, I'm blessed with 3 grandchildren. I was a child bride. I blessed with 3 grandchildren. They're all little. Oh, the eldest is 5, Oscar, and yeah, I'd like to. That image that my friend Big Ian said to me. You imagine you find your grandfather's a book about your written by your grandfather about his life. Somehow, people talk about legacy, and I'm not that really. You know what I mean? But that's something really for my family. But incidentally, my wife has said she's not going to read it until I die.
Oh, is that right? That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not. I think she's scared of what's going to be in there. I'm not sure. But I think that would be that's the single thing that made me finish this book and release it, was the idea that my grandkids might one day think, oh, what that baldy old bloke? Surely not.
Well, it's a great book, John, and I'm really glad you got it done. A lot of people start these projects, they never see it through, so I'm glad you did that.
Thank you, and guys, thank you for your support. Bob, your help has been absolutely amazing. Winston and Mikey is the same. I mean, look, what's really great, I think, about, and I've done a number of podcasts and over the years, but actually this feels just like a bunch of friends sitting around chatting about stuff. I think it's really got a really nice, comfortable vibe. It's really there's nothing sort of plastic or false about it. It's just a bunch of guys talking shit.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, we're allowed. And I don't know how these guys put up with me, so I'll just thank those guys. So
we love you.
Guys, I have I know you very kindly bought the book, but I've got copies here, which I've got Bob's address. I'm going to get your guys' address, and I would like to send you one.
If you haven't sent mine already, please sign it and just say.
I was going to.
Sure.
Could you get Bon Jovi to sign mine?
Yeah, I'll give him a buzz. Yeah.
Okay.
JBJ, we've got a job. It's in fact.
Oh, there it is. Look at that.
There it is.
Hey.
So I need to get your guys' address. I went to the post office and they want $60 to post a book.
Oh, please don't. Then you don't have to say.
No, I have a plan. No, I have a plan. My daughter lives in Buffalo, and she's
okay.
Week after next. So I'm going to get her to take them back with her and post them from the US. So they'll be
great.
Sounds great. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Not at all. Thank you very much.
And if she really, I can drive up to Buffalo and just pick it up too if it's easier for us.
Yeah, easy. Well, it's a place you'd be going anyway, right? Surely.
Going up there for wings anyway.
Some wings, yeah. I was going to say.
And the Bills lost last night, so that was crazy.
They did.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, my daughter and her husband are huge Bills fans.
Right.
There's always next year.
The problem is they say that about the Bills every year.
Yeah. Well, they're getting a new stadium, right? So there you go.
Yeah. Yep.
That'll make all the difference.
Yeah.
So listen, Johnny, thank you so much for giving us your time. And again, a great book, great effort. We really do hope anybody listening to this goes out and gets it. It is really worth every page. So thank you, Johnny.
Well, thank you, guys. Thanks again.
Good stuff.
All right, guys. So for Winston Walker, Mikey, She Cried Her Pain, I'm Bob Considine. We are leaving you now, but we'll wait till you return. See you next time, everybody.
Bye.
Turn it on. You know that you